You're listening to the Not Too Late Show, the only show where a divorce lawyer tells you the hard truths. Please welcome Sarah Schnare and divorce attorney James Sexton.
Hi, James. How's it going?
Sarah, how are you? It's good to see you.
That's good. Yeah, nice to be back on the Not Too Late podcast. I love this.
It's good to be here always.
So you've been busy. You've been trial all week. What's been going on?
Yes. I have to tell you, I am rethinking my professional choices. I don't know if it's too late to say that I don't want to be a lawyer when I grow up. I think I may have missed that boat. But yeah, I have been in the middle of an annulment trial. An annulment, for those of you playing at home, is when you're trying to void a marriage. It's like it never happened, like you're trying to say, yeah, we got married, right, but like legally we shouldn't have to get divorced because it was a fraudulent marriage. And this happens a lot in the immigration context, but I'm not kidding. I had to, for the second time in my career, elicit testimony from a man under oath that he had an incredibly small penis.
Oh, no. Really?
Under oath. I had to have, because theoretically, if a marriage was never consummated, okay, meaning they never had sexual relations, it's a different burden in terms of whether it was a real marriage or not. So in this particular case, this is the second time in my career this has happened. The person said, oh, yes, we had sex. The marriage was consummated. And my client, who was the wife, said, no, we didn't. We didn't consummate the marriage. We never had sex. And, it's kind of hard when you're a lawyer because it doesn't matter what you know. It matters what you can prove. And I said to my client, look, it's very hard to prove you didn't have sex. You were behind closed doors with this person. And she said, well, we never had sex. I've never had sex. Like I'm a virgin. This is a person in their 30s. And I said, well, it's very difficult to prove that someone's a virgin unless theoretically, if your hymen is intact, but at the age of 30, like the chances of that being like that could happen. You could break your hymen without having had sex any number of ways, especially when you're, get a little older, it becomes thinner. So it's, she said, well, I can go to my gynecologist and find out. So she goes to her gynecologist. I'm like, there's no way, So she comes back. She's in my conference room. She's crying. So I'm like, all right. So it wasn't intact. I said, so it's okay. And she goes, no, it is. It's intact. So I said, and your gynecologist found it? She said, yeah, she did an internal and she found it. So I put this guy on the witness stand and I say to him, isn't it a fact that your testimony is that you had sex? Yes. How many times did you have sex? Oh, several times. How many times? Now, sir, when you had sex, you put your penis inside of her vagina. Is that right? And objection. And the judge is like, oh, Mr. Sexton, that's kind of how it works. And I was like, Your Honor, if you could just give me a little leeway on this one. And he said, all right, I'm going to give you a little bit, but we're not going to do penthouse letters here, Mr. Sexton. Like we're not, this is a PG rated court. You're going to have to. So I said, and sir, and you inserted it and pull it and insert it and pull it. And she said, yes, that's what we did. I said, so it's regular sex. I said, now, sir, how big is your penis? An objection, Your Honor. And I said, she said, yeah, Mr. Sexton, you're going a little afield here. I said, Your Honor, if I could have a little latitude. He said, well, it's average. I said, I'm sorry, sir. I'm not sure what average means. I said, I'm going to move my hands. And when I reach the point where the size of your penis is, I want you to tell me to stop. So we get to about here. I don't know what that is. Most men, we would say that's about 12 inches, but it's probably not. It's probably more like 6 or 7. And
this is in court? You're having to do this?
Court. This is on the record in court in front of a judge like 70-something years old.
Oh, man.
And what ended up happening is I got him to testify that he had about a 6-7 inch penis, that he'd had sex with her multiple times. Then I put her gynecologist on the stand and I said, is it possible that a penis of 6 to 7 inches was in her vagina? Absolutely not. There's no way. It would have to be less than an inch and a half for her to. So then rather than say he lied, his lawyer put him back on the stand and he said, I lied earlier about the size of my penis is actually quite small. And he tried to make the argument that it was less than an inch and a half. So I went to law school for this.
Oh, what were people in the courtroom doing? I mean, were they just was this uncomfortable?
I have to tell you, it's one of those moments where I'm asking the question, like when I have someone on cross-examination, it's like I can smell blood in the water and all I'm thinking about is how do I get them to say the thing so I can rip their head off with it? And so I'm just thinking about the technique, but as he's saying these things, it's just like he's just walking into the next landmine that I've set for him. So it was amazing, and by the time we finished the judge said, all right, counselor, I want to see the attorneys in chambers. And she brought the attorneys in chambers and she said, you're giving this woman her annulment or else I'm going to go after him for perjury. And I'd said, Your Honor, I want an independent medical exam done to prove what the size of his penis is when it's erect. And I wanted it. And the judge was like, we're done now. You're giving, and she got her annulment. We didn't even have to get to a judgment. But yeah, I mean, this is the stuff that like I wish there were cameras in the courtroom for this kind of stuff because it was like the best TV you'd ever see in your life.
Yeah, no kidding. I'm still wrapping my head around that. And this is twice you've had to talk about penis size?
That this has happened. Yes. Second time. Crazy.
What with an annulment? It's a certain amount of time that you can get something annulled, right?
Yeah, I mean, usually the longer you're married, the harder it is to get an annulment. But yeah, I mean, there's actually each state has its own basis for annulments. But there's like fraud, which is where you were, let's say, married to someone else and you lied about it. There's each state has different specific grounds. Some have like that if the person didn't have the ability to have children and didn't tell you, like they knew, but they didn't tell you and you wanted to have children, that could be a basis. There's all kinds of incurable mental illness can be a basis for an annulment. There's all kinds of things, but it changes. Different states have different rules for annulment. A lot of times people want annulments because they're religious and they don't want to be divorced. But it comes up a lot in the context of immigration cases because you have like that 90-day fiance thing where a person married in good faith thinking they were going to be with this person and the other person, the minute they got their green card, they were out. So when they say, well, this was fraud. So it's tricky. It's tricky to prove what's in someone's heart because even if you're married to somebody for one day and then you go, you know what? I don't like this person. They left the toilet seat up too many times in the last 48 hours.
Yeah.
Who's to say that's not a legitimate basis to divorce somebody, in a no fault state. So it's tricky.
Well, let me give you a proper introduction on that note. I am Sarah Schnare, and the person you've been listening to talk about penis size for the last 5 minutes is America's amazing divorce attorney, James Sexton.
Thank you. Yes. We usually, it's not often where I get to talk to a beautiful woman and start by talking about penises and then my name. So that's pretty good. I think you get arrested for that.
Oh my God, that's true. Well, let me plug your book because I really do. Right. I am a fan of this. I know I say this a lot, but James's book, if you're in my office, it's already too late. A Divorce Lawyer's Guide to Staying Together. Insightful, a really good read, lots about relationships. And if there's anybody who has been influential in a ton of divorces, it's James, and he knows what he's talking about. So
thanks.
Get right
wow, that was quite a plug. I feel I got to get you on the payroll.
Plug. Oh, we're off to a good start. Okay, James, this is your first question.
All right.
Hey, James, I'm currently dealing with a divorce. Among the stuff involved, there are some personal items that mean a lot to me. They are pictures of my soon-to-be ex-wife and I nude, and maybe a few videos of us being intimate.
I like the maybe.
Seeing as I know, right?
Maybe.
Seeing as I am the one who took the pics and videos, and it was all done on my cameras, I feel like that stuff belongs to me. I'd love to know what legal steps I can take to get these items back from my soon-to-be ex-spouse. They really do hold sentimental value, and I really want to make sure I get them back in a fair and friendly way. I would never share them with anyone else. It would all stay protected with me. Any advice you can give on the best approach to get my pics and videos back would be awesome. Looking forward to hearing from you. Best regards, Clint.
All right.
Good question, because I think we can all relate, because I know, I'm sure most people have sent or received questionable, intimate. I mean, I've sent
100%. I don't think anybody in the modern age has not been part of this. I think that this is part of our sort of zeitgeist of relationships now. And I think we all kind of know the risks when we do that. But do we though? Because here's the thing is in the moment when, and I know we're getting off topic and I want to go back to Clint's question specifically, but as it relates to me, in the moment when I'm sending a video to someone that I'm, intimate with, dating, seeing, it's
it's fun. It's sexy. There's an element of trust. And I look back and I think I'm such an idiot because these are partners who have said, oh, I'll delete it. This is just for me. Let's be honest. Who's deleting a photo or a video?
Right.
I mean,
well, I mean, what Clint says in the question, Clint says in the question, these have sentimental value to me.
Yes. But not legal value. So
yeah, but sentimental value is a form of value. I mean, value is value.
Okay.
So but the problem is this, is I think we all know when we share anything with a partner, right? Even when we share a secret with a partner, or we share some honest emotional state or painful memory or something about our family or something about someone, we're exposing ourselves to the possibility that could be leveraged against us someday, and that's the reality. I mean, I always tell people that what makes divorce so challenging is it's intimacy weaponized. This person who got to know your levers, how to make you happy, what makes you sad, for the purpose of avoiding the things that make you sad, now is angry at you and considers you the enemy. And now they can use all of those things for very nefarious purposes and to hurt you if they want to. So, so the answer to Clint's question is a little complicated. So one, there's nothing in Clint's question that says the circumstances under which these photos and maybe videos were made. And it says that he made them. He says that he recorded them. But one of the things I would like to be very clear on is as long as his partner knew these videos were being made. Okay. Because recording someone who you are, recording intimate photographs of someone or recording your intimate moments with someone without their knowledge or consent is an entirely different thing than if two people in a couple, as many people do, decide, hey, wouldn't it be fun to take some videos or some pictures of the two of us, going at it, which, by the way, I think people overestimate how good they look while they're having sex. I think people watch pornography and they forget that there's lighting involved and multiple camera angles.
Cuts.
And And they
choreographed.
Really, the
sex.
faces we probably all make while having sex are absolutely hilarious and insane. And someone once said to me, if you ever want to know if a woman is faking an orgasm, if she sounds good while she's having an orgasm, she's faking it. Whereas if she sounds like she's having some kind of seizure or like a wild animal that's being killed, it's probably real. So I always took that to heart. But look, I think the question varies state to state. There are some states that require that if you have photographs or video of a person in a state of undress, or what they call intimate photographs, which would include engaged in a sexual activity or in various states of undress, that person has the authority to require that you destroy those items. And that you not disseminate them to third parties. It's called revenge porn laws is what these are commonly known as revenge porn laws. And a lot of states now have them, an increasing number every year, because this has become a bigger and bigger problem. And the publication of those, meaning showing them to any third party or publishing them on a website or anything like that, is actually a crime in many states without a person's prior written consent. Now, again, it also depends on the context of this. Like if this is something where it's the two of them, there's not identifying characteristics of that person. Like, if you can't see their face or if their face is blurred out in some manner in post, that's another set of applicable laws. If he was, for example, a photographer, meaning this is what he does for a living, is takes photographs, and he said, hey, babe, I want to take some photographs of you, naked. That's art, theoretically. And as an artist, if you had her sign a release or a waiver, it's another set of rules that applies. So the devil is in the details in stuff like this. But what I tell everybody, obviously is this is an issue that comes up all the time where people come in, they're getting divorced and they say, look, my spouse has all these naked pictures of me. My spouse has all these videos of me. Even if you say you're going to destroy them, there's really no way, to prove that someone has gotten rid of those things. They're not going to allow us to search and seize someone's computer. I have had people do horrible things like send explicit videos to someone's parent, which, I always thought was just so distasteful,
What's the point of that?
I had a client, though, I do have to say, I had a client I respected tremendously once. who was from a very religious family, and her soon-to-be ex sent videos of her having sex with him, her husband, to her parents. And they were like very explicit, videos, dirty videos, and
why? What were they trying to get?
Just to be a jerk. Okay, he knew that the parents were religious and conservative and would be shocked to see her giving a blowjob and things like that. And I would tell you, I thought it was a scumbag move on his part, and the judge did too. And it really made the judge think he was a jerk. So it paid for us eventually. But I loved my client because she just owned it. Like she was like, yeah. She's like, yeah, those are videos of me trying to be an excellent wife to my husband and trying to meet his needs as best I can. And I'm proud of those. And my parents should be proud that they have a daughter who took her bonds seriously and wants to be, someone who pleases her spouse. And she just spun it in this way that was very autonomy, agency, and unashamed, and was very I'm unashamed, but you should be ashamed of yourself that you would try to weaponize something I did for you as part of our relationship. And it worked. It worked. The judge looked at this guy like a just absolute piece of garbage because there was absolutely no legitimate reason to share those photos or videos with him. Yeah,
so to be a dick. That's
so. I guess what I would just say to Clint is, as sentimental as you may feel about those photos and videos, that you really how you got them. What you're going to do with them in the future, just be careful about it and be specific and look in the state that you're in, what the details are. And generally, although I understand the desire to hold on to those things, if you're going to be getting in new relationships, think of how you would feel if your current partner had videos or photos of their ex-lovers, that you probably wouldn't feel great about that, knowing that they're going to stroll down memory lane with those things. So just try to look, letting go of past relationships when they end. Some of that now involves deleting sometimes several gigabytes worth of video and photos.
Well, and it seems like it's just another thing to add. You're having sexy time, you're in the moment, you and your partner are sharing this really beautiful space together. At that time, do you have to have a conversation that says, hey, I own this, I'll make you a copy. Should we ever break up?
Yeah.
Is that something that you can kind of get ahead of? It just
you certainly could. I don't see people doing that. Yeah, I don't see people doing that. I feel like this is that sketch from Dave Chappelle's show, The Love Contract, I'm a fan. I'm a huge fan as a lawyer and as a human being of having, conversations with lovers about, what are our boundaries? What do we consent to? And that way, you don't have to have that in the heat of the moment. You have it when you're rational and when you're clear-headed and when you're not in the heat of passion, you're having that discussion because nothing's less sexy than in the middle of, heated, physical intimacy being like, by the way, do you consent to,
You're right.
I think that's not the time. So if you can have that discussion beforehand about likes, dislikes, do's and don'ts, safe words, things like that. But I think that, this is something that both people have to be comfortable with. The most dangerous thing, in my opinion, is there is now, there are a lot of people criminally who are charged with recording, intimacies that they didn't have permission to do. And that is really a complete violation of someone's trust and bodily autonomy and all those kinds of things.
So just to back up before I move on to just the video that I have sent to somebody I was seeing at the time, we are no longer together. I own that. Is that correct? He might be showing people, but if I ever see that resurface and he's shown someone, that's illegal?
Theoretically, yeah. Property? In California has a revenge porn law. So yes, you have the right to limit the dissemination of that.
Yep.
So you have a right to say that he's not allowed to disseminate it. You may not have the right to get it back from him because you did give it to him, but you can limit his ability to transmit or what we call publish. People hear the word publish and they think publish in the paper. Publish just means sharing it with more than one person. So, slander and libel. Slander is when you say something knowingly false about someone that harms their reputation. Libel is when you publish it. But people think, that means in the newspaper. No, it means when you say it to another person or write it to another person, when you publish it to a third party or parties.
Okay. Thank you, James.
Right,
that was very helpful.
Absolutely.
I appreciate that. All right.
You send this guy a cease and desist letter. You let me know. I'll just fire that.
Yeah, I will.
No problem.
Well, you're a good friend to have. I'll tell you that.
I can't tell you how many times I get calls from people. They're like, can you send a lawyer letter to this person? I'm like, sure. Just send it off. You immediately discontinue. This firm has been consulted, but not retained by blah, 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 blah.
It's got to be so annoying for you when everyone just wants to hit you up for free legal advice. It's like being in an elevator with a doctor. Can you look at this mole?
My sister's a dentist. And when I was in law school and she was in dental school, we were both broke. And so I said to her, look, I can't afford to buy you Christmas presents, but for the rest of your life, you get free legal advice. And she was like, well, I can't afford to buy you Christmas presents. For the rest of the life, you get free dental work. Here's the problem. She lives in Vermont, 6 hours away. I can give free legal advice over the phone. She can't do free dental work over the phone. So she got the better end of that deal.
That's true. That's really nice to have a sibling that's a doctor. Like that's
pretty good.
Wonderful. Lucky family. Dear James, I'm currently going through a challenging divorce. I'm concerned about tax impact and financial matters. Are there specific tax implications during and after divorce, especially with joint custody? How does alimony affect income taxes for both parties? How will division of assets impact my financial stability? Thank you for your time. Best regards, Sarah.
This isn't you, though.
No, the only thing I know about this is filing. You go from divorce to marital.
That's
or
true.
to
Married,
from
filing
married
separate,
to single or
look at you.
Head of household.
You're hired. You're hired, Sarah.
That's why I extend. That's
all right. You're hired as my paralegal. So there's a lot in that question. And,
yes.
There's
good for her for staying on top of this stuff because it's not a sexy
100%,
question, but this is important stuff to know.
Yeah. The question she asked at the end about how will divorce impact my financial stability, that's a much bigger question.
Yes.
That's a much bigger question. I mean, first of all, you can't cut anything in half and have it be bigger than it was. At best, it's going to be half the size, but you usually lose something in the cutting. So I always, there is such a thing as a divorce financial planner. And what that usually is this person who's gone through CFP, certified financial planning, training and certification, but also has special training in divorce financial planning. I have a
specialty to what you do.
Yeah, I have a number of divorce financial planners who I collaborate with. And it's a great profession, divorce financial planning, because sometimes, people are married, their spouse handles, like for me, I do a lot of New York City finance divorces. So people at Goldman, people at, big banks, hedge funds. And I either represent the person who works for those funds, who works in finance, or the person who's married to the person in finance. And a lot of times if you're married to someone in finance, you've let them handle all that stuff. You get out of the divorce, you don't want to hire any of the people that they've worked with or they knew. And you don't have any experience with investment, but now you got, a couple $1 million worth of money you got in the divorce, or tens of millions of dollars you got in the divorce, or even a couple $100,000 you got in the divorce. And you have to now figure out, okay, what am I going to need? Now I have this much coming in spousal support, this much in child support, this much put away for retirement. And they're asking me, well, what should I do? Should I take the house, or should I sell the house, or should I have them buy me out of the house? And I say, look, I can help you accomplish the goals, but what you should do with your finances is a financial planning question. And again, stay in your lane, taxes, accountant, legal issues, lawyer, financial planning issues, financial planner. And ideally, the best divorce lawyers are going to work with accountants, financial planners, all those other professionals, and kind of coordinate.
Yep. Gotcha. You know what? Stay in your lane. It doesn't really apply to you though, because you don't stay in your lane. I mean, I'd come to you for therapy.
That's true.
Great advice. Look at the book you wrote. You know what?
I have to tell you,
I do hear you though. When it comes to numbers, stay in your lane.
We touch on as a divorce lawyer, we have our hand in everything at a certain level. But I'm very quick to say, look, I know this much about this. Like divorce law, I know all of it. Like I know a big bunch on that. But, tax law, tax implications of divorce, financial planning, I know a little, and I know what I don't know. So I can say, look, here's the little bit I know, but you should go so like I'm a dog owner. So somebody says to me, my dog's doing this. I say, look, as a dog owner, I know this, this, and this, and my dog has done this, or your dog. But you should talk to a veterinarian, there's a difference between having a little bit of knowledge on something and being open about that and saying, look, defer to a professional on that.
Yep. I get that. That's a very good point. Are you ready for our last question, James?
Let's do it.
Okay. Hey, James, I bought your divorce audiobook and crushed it driving to and from work over a few days.
Oh, that's nice.
You have so much great stuff in there. I was so blown away and signed up for TikTok just so I could see some of your stuff you did on the Steve Harvey show. Here's my issue. I was quoting you for weeks and my fiance told me you were divorced. WTH. What the heck? That rocked my world. How can a guy who knows so much about divorce have to have a divorce? Sadly, Gabe.
Oh, Gabe.
Giddy up, Gabe. Giddy up. I love this.
Gabe is sadder than me and my ex-wife about our divorce. That's the poor Gabe.
Let's change his opinion.
We didn't take Gabe into consideration when we split up all those years ago. I guess we should have. No. Well, thank you for your concern and for your question, Gabe. Yeah, look, I'm shocked that anyone would see me as a total, like a relationship expert. I think the first time I saw on TV under my name, James Sexton, relationship expert, I kind of laughed. And my ex-wife, who I'm very close friends with, sort of laughed and said, look at this. I'll tell you actually a very funny story. In one of my episodes of Steve Harvey, they had questions about sex. And for some reason, whoever was doing the captions or the whatever, I don't know what it's called, but they wrote James Sexton, sex expert.
Ooh.
And I was like, I got to get a screenshot of this. I ought to be like, excuse me, lady. I don't know if you know I am a sex expert, but I actually called my ex-wife and I said, by the way, did you know I'm a sex expert? And she was like, well, I don't know. I don't know did you get that training after we split up? Because I wasn't impressed. But yeah, no, I don't think that the fact someone is divorced necessarily means they can't give good relationship advice any more than the fact that a person who is married can't give advice to someone about divorce. I'm very happily divorced. I've been divorced for, 17, 18 years at this point. I married my college sweetheart, who I would proudly say to anyone is someone who I love and would not want to be married to. And I think she would describe me the same way, that she loves me and wouldn't want to be married to me. She's been remarried for, I think, 13, 14 years now to a wonderful guy who is I consider a friend at this point. He's part of our family. Our kids were very young, 5 and 7 when we split up, but now they're in their 20s and grown, and they're very close with both their mom and I. We lived very close to each other. The kids walked back and forth between our places. I think my kids had a very weird sense of what divorced parents were like. They'd be at school and saying, oh, my parents are divorced, and their friends say, oh, mine are too. And they'd say, oh yeah, but like, you have keys, your parents have keys to each other's houses and they feed each other's pets when we go on vacation with their new partners, and
right. You're very amicable split.
But yeah, I don't know
in so many ways.
Yeah. I mean, I've had a doctor who wasn't in great physical shape. And I didn't look at him and go, well, what does he know? Because my feeling was, well, maybe he can't take his own advice. Or maybe for whatever reasons, he doesn't, follow the advice that he knows is the right advice to give. For me, I think I learned a lot about marriage from being married and from being divorced. I learned a lot about divorce. I was already a divorce lawyer when I got divorced. And I think I learned a lot about what my clients feel and go through by going through it myself. I had an incredibly friendly divorce. It was incredibly amicable and mutual. And like I said, we've stayed dear friends, and great co-parents together. But the reality is that even the friendliest divorce is a massive change and very hard to navigate, especially when there are kids involved. But I tell my sons, I told them when they were small, and I tell them still to this day when they're both grown men, that, their mom was one of the great loves of my life, that I'm a better man for having known her. I like to think her life is better for my presence in it. If nothing else, then certainly for the fact that we have 2 amazing kids. And what I'll say is that one of the great things you learn when you get divorced and you have children is you have to learn how to navigate the personality traits in your ex that you kind of couldn't stand, but you have to learn them in your children. So like my kids have a lot of their mom in them, and some of the best things about their mom they have in them, her sense of humor, which I still enjoy to this day in her. And I love it in my kids, but like they have some of her negative characteristics. She was very anxious about things, and they have some of that anxiety. And by the way, I know my sons have a lot of my personality traits, and my older son even looks a lot like me. So my ex-wife like has to sit and look at her ex-husband half the time, you know? But yeah, I don't know that being divorced, I think if anything, it helped me understand divorce better. It helped me understand what was good and bad about being married, at least that marriage. And I absolutely, I have no regrets about having been married. I think it was a wonderful experience. And I was very young. I was 18 when I met my ex-wife, and she was, I think, 18 also. It was my sophomore year of college, her freshman year. And we got married at 21, and we had our
wow, you're like a different person. You're a different human
I look at my
age,
two sons. I laugh with my ex-wife because our sons are now past the age we were when we were married and when we had them. And we look at each other now and go like, oh my God, we thought we were grown-ups, but listen, it's great. I think that, I hope you enjoyed the book. I appreciate that you listened to it on audiobook, because you're listening to me for 8.5 hours, which is a lot of hours to listen to me. But I don't think that my divorce, cuts my resume as a person with insight into relationships. I think it's helped it. But I think that every marriage is unique. Every divorce is unique in some ways. And like I said, I don't regret for 1 second getting married, and I don't regret for a second getting divorced. Those were both really good decisions.
Well, and one thing that separates you from a lot of other people who get divorced, you're somebody who learns from your mistakes. And so the beauty of you is you'll take responsibility and ownership. You're not a victim, and you apply that to, I would assume, your future relationships, to parenting, your job, to the couples that you've got to, show a sense of sensitivity in dealing with divorce. In my opinion, it's growth, and it's actually even more beautiful.
I think so, and I appreciate that.
Of divorce, it's like a failed relationship. I hate that word. If you were in a relationship for a year, 5 years, that's beautiful. Relationships are tough. Like, I don't see any of them as failures. I
think we have a weird view
in this failure if you don't grow from it.
We have a weird view in this culture. Like, I really believe in if we looked at relationships as chapters in a long book, and each of those chapters has something unique to provide to us. And look, my parents were married over 50 years until my mom passed away, and they had a beautiful, relationship and a long relationship. And it was successful. And I know people with divorce, relationships that were successful in their relationships. I consider my marriage was successful. I also think too that, it's okay to not be great at being married. Like, I'm a really good ex-husband. I think I'm a better ex-husband than I was husband. I wasn't patient enough as a husband. I wasn't attentive enough as a husband. I love my job. I'm obsessed with my work. I was happy by Sunday afternoon. I couldn't wait to get back to the office. And it wasn't that I didn't enjoy family life. I just love my job. And so as an ex-husband, being reliable, being someone who's a hard worker, who's financially solvent and financially responsible, those are good traits for an ex-husband. And so I was a really good ex-husband and a really good co-parent, better than I was as a husband. And I actually look at my ex-wife's current husband, and he's kind of perfect for her. Like, he's patient. He's a therapist. That's what he does for a living. And he's just a patient, great listener. Which, that's what she needed. That's what's right for her. And when you love someone, you want them to be with someone who's right for them, even if it's not me, and I took great joy in seeing my ex-wife find love and find happiness and find like the lid for her pot. And I'm cheering for them. I have always been cheering for them, and I will always be cheering for them.
Aw, there you go, Gabe. That was such a beautiful answer. I love that.
Cool. There you go.
One thing I did want to say, because I've heard you say that you are a realist and a romantic. Were you always that way, or was that something you sort of became more after your divorce, after being around so many divorces? Is that something that you've developed over time, or have you always been that way? Because I like your views on,
I think that's a great question. I think I've always been wired as a pragmatist. I think there's a line from a Joseph Brodsky poem that I like very much, that says, I wish I knew no astronomy when stars appear. And I think that because I think once you studied astronomy, like when you don't know astronomy, the stars are just these beautiful lights in the sky. And then once you know astronomy, you're like, actually, it's a ball of gas several thousand light years away.
Yes.
And like it kind of loses its romance a little. So I think that you can't do this for a living, being a divorce lawyer, and not lose some of the mystery and optimism. I mean, marriage is at its core the triumph of faith over reason. And statistically, when you get married, 56% chance you're going to get divorced. Like that, it's not a good bet. It's not a good gamble, but yet, there's something in us that just wants to try. And I don't know that it's not worth it to try. I always say marriage is like the lottery. You're probably not going to win, but if you win, what you win is so good. Why wouldn't you buy a ticket? Why wouldn't you try? So I think I was always someone who liked to be honest about reality. So I think I live my life most authentically when I realize I'm going to die. Like when I don't think about the fact that someday I'm going to die, I live my life like, oh, I don't ever have to worry about that. I'm going to be here forever. And when I'm mindful of the fact that, no, this is finite. So like do stuff, like see stuff, like live life, enjoy it. When I just got over being sick, I'm so grateful for my health, like when I get over a cold, like when I get over a toothache.
I wish that could last longer. I get that.
Right? I mean, like when you have a toothache, all you can think about is, oh my God, my tooth hurts. And then for like a day when it goes away, you're like, oh, I'm so glad. But did you wake up today and go, oh, I don't have a toothache?
I know.
I'm so lucky. I don't have a cold.
That. It's such a bummer.
I don't have any of that. No, you woke up and you're like, oh, it's going to be hot today and I have so much to do. And like, why are we so ungrateful? Like, so I always tried to like in everything,
your
life, love, work, health, try to look at it that way. Even when my kids were little, I remember with my ex-wife once, when our older boy, he was like 3 or 4 and he was still using a pacifier and she was all, she was really like, oh, what's going to happen with the pacifier? We got to get him off the pacifier. And she was so worked up about it. And I said to her, like, I don't want to sound like an asshole here, but like, there's a couple sitting at a kitchen table right now, like with a 3-year-old like ours, and they're talking about that the kid's going to need another round of chemotherapy.
Yeah.
Like, if this is the worst problem we ever have as parents, we're so lucky. Like, this is such a great problem to have, like that we got this healthy, wonderful kid who likes having a pacifier, which, by the way, he did eventually give up. So, I just think that if we can kind of remember that, I think that we're just going to have a better life, all of us. So I think I try to always have that perspective, and I hope I always have that perspective.
Yeah, that mindfulness is really beautiful. Well, thank you to Gabe and Clint and Sarah for your really great questions. Thank you, James. I love talking to you.
Always great to see you, Sarah. It's always great breaking the battle of the day-to-day chaos. So
yeah, it was. Well, thanks, and we'll see you.
Good. See you next time.
If you have any relationship or divorce questions and want to hear from attorney James Sexton, be sure to email podcasts@lamag.com.